Hello everyone, my name is Xu. Our group topic is China, and I will talk about how globalization has shaped Chinese political economy. I will also explain the main legal changes Australian companies may face when entering the Chinese market. China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001. This step increased trade and foreign investment. By 2023, trade made up about 36% of China's GDP. Foreign companies brought money and new technology, and China also began to invest overseas. The Belt and Road project started in 2013. Now connects China with more than 150 countries. China has a one-party system led by the Communist Party. It is called a socialized market economy, meaning there are private businesses but state-owned companies still control key areas such as energy, banking, and transport. The legal system is based on civil law, but enforcement differs between regions. The government closely manages the movement of money in and out of the country. Globalization has brought strong economic growth. Technology transfer helped industries move from low-cost manufacturing to high-tech fields like electronics and renewable energy. Exports and investment encourage millions of people to move to cities. But there are challenges. Trade tensions with the United States, supply chain problems during COVID-19, and higher carbon emissions. Australian business face several legal issues. Intellectual property rights are better now, but copying can still occur. Date and cybersecurity rules such as the 2021 date security law require some data to stay in China and may need government checks. Contract enforcement can be uneven because local governments sometimes protect local firms. To success, many Australian films from joint ventures or partnerships with Chinese companies. This builds trust and helps them follow local rules. They must watch data protection, labor and environmental standards. Because policies can change quickly, companies and flexible plans and good compliance teams. In short, globalization helped China become the world's second largest economy, but strong state control and complex laws remain. Australian firms can profit from China's big market, but they must plan for strict data rules, possible IP risks, and uneven enforcement. Working with reliable local partners and careful legal planning are key to long-term success. Thank you.
Here's Jinge. Today I will analyze China economic and human development and explain what it means for Australian firms considering expansion. China is the world's second largest economy and one of the most important trading partners for Australia. In this presentation, I will focus on two aspects: the country's economic strength and its level for human development. I will highlight the key indicators and theories that help us understand China's progress. Finally, I will argue That while economic growth is important, human development is even more critical for ensuring long-term sustainability and cooperation. So China economy is strong, large, and constantly evolving. In 2023, GDP reached about 18 trillion US dollar, which an annual growth rate of around 5%. This is remarkable, compared to most developed economies that grew much more slowly. China has been transitioning from low-cost manufacturing to high-technology industries like artificial intelligence and electric vehicles, as well as services such as finance and the digital economy. According to Ricardo comparative advantage theory, China first succeeded by using its labor force to specialize in labor-intensive industries, but now it's upgrading. Porter's diamond model also can explain that transformation. China's factor indoors include a massive labor supply. Together, those conditions shows why China remains a powerful force in the global economy. Now, let's turn to human development. According to the UNDP, China's human development industry in 2023 is 0.788, placing it in the high human development. This is a major achievement for the world's largest developing country. Life expectancy is now about 78 years, slowly improvement in human care and the living standard. In education, China has the largest higher education system in the world, producing millions of graduates each year, especially in science, mathematics, and finance. This means China not only has a large workforce, but also one with increasingly advanced skills. Following Tencent's human development approach, true development depends on capabilities, the abilities of humans to live long, healthy, and educated lives. China's raising HDI reflects a strong workforce, productive, and an expanding consumer base. These combinations makes human development a foundation for sustainable long-term growth. So which matter more? Economic growth or human development? That's the question. Both are clearly important, but their importance are different. As a developing country, China tends to prefer stability and risk avoidance, unlike North American countries that often pursue short-term profit. Chinese policy makes and compares value long-term cooperation and sustainable partnership because they reduce uncertainty and create trust. But human development addresses the deeper need of society than profit, making cooperation more predictable and sustainable. In short, economic growth brings short-term opportunities, but human development guarantees long-term sustainability and shared success. To conclusion, China shows strong progress in both economic and human development. However, for long-term cooperation, human development is the more important factor. There are two main reasons for this conclusion. First, labor quality. The expansion of higher education and the creation of a large pool of talent guarantees. Improve productive and support advanced research and joint ventures with Australian firms. Second, consumer upgrading. As living standards rise, China's middle class is expanding rapidly. This group demands higher quality products and services, like Australian premium wine and food, to international education, tourism, and human care. This growing demand means more stable market and new opportunities for Australian firms. So the strategy is clear. In the short term, Australian firms can benefit from China's large economic and industrial cooperation, but in the long term, success depends on aligning with human development factors. Investing in education, innovation, and the consumer sectors
cultural differences between China and Australia. Hello, everyone. Today I will analyze the cultural gap between China and Australia and explore whether these two cultures are converging or remaining divergent in the context of globalization and international business. First, let's look at Hofstede's 6 dimensions of culture. Australia is characterized by low power distance, high individualism, and high indulgence. These scores reflect an egalitarian mindset, a strong emphasis on personal responsibility, and a culture that encourages open debate and direct communication. In the workplace, employees expect to be consulted for their opinions. The hierarchical structure is relatively flat, and managers tend to act more as coaches than authoritative figures. In contrast, China scores high in power, distance, collectivism, and long-term orientation. This reflects deeply rooted hierarchical structures in China, respect for seniority, and loyalty to teams or organizations. Chinese culture emphasizes patience, long-term planning, and maintaining harmony within the collective. For Australian companies operating in China, this means success depends not only on product competitiveness, but also on navigating local hierarchical relationships and building trust gradually. Second, let's turn to Hall's high and low context culture theory. Australia is a low context culture where business communication is straightforward and explicit, contract terms are detailed and thorough, and people speak their minds directly. On the contrary, China is a high context culture where much of the meaning is conveyed indirectly through interpersonal relationships, social contexts, and nonverbal cues. This poses a challenge for Australians who may over-rely on contracts, while Chinese partners may view written documents as just one part of a broader relationship. Therefore, to conduct business effectively, Australian enterprises must pay close attention to informal dinners, gift-giving customs, and subtle cues that often carry more weight than direct words. Third, there are differences in time orientation. Australians tend to have a monochronic time orientation. They value punctuality, are driven by deadlines, and attach great importance to following schedules strictly. Chinese culture, however, leans more toward a polychronic time orientation with a flexible attitude toward time, a habit of multitasking, and a higher tolerance for project adjustments. This means Australian project managers in China cannot rely solely on rigid Gantt charts or fixed deadlines. Instead, they need to adopt a dual approach, ensuring that formal milestones are achieved while leaving room for flexibility and relationship management. Now, the key question: are the two cultures converging or diverging? On the surface level, convergence is indeed evident. Both countries are increasingly operating within global frameworks of compliance, digitalization, and standardized processes. English is widely used as a business language, and multinational corporations often introduce standardized human resources and governance practices. However, at the deeper level of values, divergence remains significant. Hierarchical attitudes, collective loyalty, and indirect communication styles continue to shape Chinese business culture. These differences are unlikely to disappear as they are closely tied to centuries-old traditions, Confucian values, and social structures. Implications for Australian companies to succeed. Australian firms should not see this as an either-or choice between becoming fully Chinese or remaining fully Australian. Instead, they need dual adaptation. Adopt the Australian style in areas that benefit from clarity and efficiency, such as KPI, key performance indicator setting, contract drafting, and compliance reporting. Adapt to the Chinese context when it comes to building partnerships, motivating employees, and handling negotiations. This means cultivating managers who can act as cultural bridges, individuals who are bilingual not only in language but also in cultural understanding. In conclusion, China and Australia are gradually converging at the operational level, but divergence remains prominent at the cultural value level. Recognizing this balance and developing strategies that integrate both approaches will be the key factor determining the long-term success of.
Hello, I'm Chuqi. Today I will analyze China's trade policy instrument, which theories they support, and what this means for Australian business. This is crucial since China is Australia's largest trading partner. Let me establish the context first. According to the FAT, China accounts for 26% of Australia's total trade, worth $325 billion in 2023 to 2024. The Australian Institute of International Affairs report that Australia's exports reached $204 billion, with primary product making up 37% of Australia's world export. China is also the Australia's fifth largest foreign investor. This demonstrates why understanding China's trade policies is so essential for Australian business. China employs three main trade policy instruments. First, tariff-free policies. While CHAFTA elements 95% of tariff on Australian goods. Fourth, China also used anti-dumping measures. Second, non-tariff barriers including technical standards. Fourth, the positive news is that trade impediments affecting Australian export has been removed since 2020. Third, investment policies for FDI regulation and state-owned enterprise policies that may affect market competition. China policy supports two key trade theories. First, comparative advantage theory. Our trade relationship shows natural complementarity with Australia specializing in primary product and China in manufacturing. However, China's approach also reflects strategic trade theory. According to recent RAND analysis, China used multiple policy instruments beyond tariffs, with government intervention to boost domestic production and FDI policies that facilitate technology transfer. This represents strategic planning rather than pure market force. What does this mean for Australian business? Research by Tai and Wu shows US and China tensions negatively impact the Australia trade with China. Australia's WTO statement notes that China's market reforms haven't progressed since 2018. However, opportunity exists through CHAFTA benefits and natural trade complementarity. Recent academic analysis suggests Australia follows a dual-track approach, pursuing the economic comparison while managing strategic competition. Business must navigate both opportunities and geopolitical risk. In conclusion, China's trade policies demonstrate a sophisticated combination of comparative advantage and strategic trade theory in practice. This creates a complex business environment for Australian companies, one where natural economic complementarities provide strong foundation for trade, but where strategic policy consideration add layers of complexity and risk. For Australian business, success in this kind of market requires more than just competitive product or service. It demands an understanding of how economic principle and strategic policy framework interact to shape market conditions. Companies that can navigate both dimensions are best positioned to capitalize on one of the world's most important bilateral trade relationships. Thank you.